This video will delve into coming up with ideas. The premise of this video is I will guide you on how to come up and develop meaningful and creative ideas. Here's a little bit about me. I've worked as a VFX director in the film industry. I've created my own short films and art directed. I run an Indian-themed Melbourne-based streetwear brand, and I have delved in other forms of media creation as well. My name is RK. I have the mission of helping creatives improve themselves and the people around them through their craft. Respect to you first for clicking on this low dopamine educational video instead of some clickbaity video on your feed. So what you can do if you want to see more videos like this is click the subscribe button below and you'll see more content like mine on your feed. This will honestly improve the content that you're watching and improve your mindset and skills on the long run. These are the steps that we'll be going through today. Addressing the limiting belief that you lack creativity, training your brain to have more creative thoughts, the exponential effect of doing the actual process of creating things, and how disconnecting can be the source of your creativity. And finally, we'll cover delegating the process of creativity. So first, we're going to be looking at addressing the limiting beliefs that you lack creativity. The way you label yourself is very important, and most people don't label themselves as creative people. They say, oh, creativity is not for me. The fear of coming up with something that is deemed as not great or not creative is the reason most people are held back. On the other hand, to create has one of the three T's of creating. The three T's of creating are taste, talent, and technique. If you like certain things, you have a favorite color, you have a favorite TV show, that means you have the taste. Most people, where they need to work on is the technique and the talent. You have 1,000 ideas in your brain before you have a good one. The trick is getting the bad ones out of your system. The real battle is allowing yourself to get rid of the limiting belief that you are not creative and letting your brain think and come up with these creative ideas by itself. So now that we have addressed the limiting belief that you lack creativity, we're now going to how can you train your brain to have more creative thoughts? Coming up with creative ideas is just like a muscle you can train in your body. And you need to first understand the difference between automatic and manual thoughts. Certain thoughts that you have in your brain come to you automatically versus certain thoughts in your brain you have to force in. An example would be if I told you to think about a pink elephant, that is a thought that you're forcing into your brain. However, automatic thoughts are thoughts that just come into your brain randomly. The way to make your automatic thoughts more creative is by controlling how much of your manual thoughts are creative. Conscious practice in having manual creative thoughts subconsciously embeds into your brain to having automatic creative thoughts. Although creative insight is a spark, you can train your brain to create more of these sparks. There are techniques that you can do to manually input these creative thoughts into your brain. So as you go and get better at this, your automatic thoughts will get more creative. The two that I'll be talking about today that I use on the most basis is Scamper and the 3% rule. Scamper is a technique that you can use to take an idea that you already like and modify it and change it in different ways. The steps of Scamper is to substitute, adapt, modify, put to another use, combine, eliminate, and reverse. As you can see here, we have the idea of a pencil. Here we eliminate the wood and create a mechanical pencil. We can substitute the tip of the pencil, the end of the pencil, and substitute it with an eraser. Techniques like these allow us to input manual creative thoughts into our brain so that on the long run, we can have more automatic creative thoughts. Is the 3% rule. This is a rule created by the late Virgil Abloh. It says you take a design that's already working and modify it by 3%. Here's an example from Salt Studios where they take a baseball jersey and they modify it by 3% to create this interesting piece. Sometimes you don't need to completely come up with a new idea and you can just change the ideas that are already in your head little by little and create something amazing. There are way more techniques that you can do. These are just the two that help me. A book that I would highly recommend looking into is The Creative Act. This book delves into the creative process and everything that has to do with creativity. The next step in this process is understanding the exponential effect of doing the creative process. If you're a photographer, number one way to get more creative at photography is to do photography. It might be simple, but the act of doing is where most of the ideas branch from. There is this phenomenon called the G.I. Joe fallacy, where people think knowing is half the battle, but the actual process and the actual action is where clarity comes from. The benefits and the creative ideas that you reap from doing the actual action is exponential. The more you actually do the thing, the more knowledge you have in that field, and the more ideas and the more things you can tamper with. Thus, the actual process of doing the thing is where most of your creativity comes from. Now we're going to go into how disconnecting can unlock creative ideas. There is a strong correlation between boredom and creativity. If you are in a rut, just to take 15 to 20 minutes of your day and just stare at a wall with a piece of paper. All throughout the day, you're constantly stimulating yourself and giving yourself information. This overstimulation is not letting your brain think and consolidating the ideas that are coming in. The daydreaming and just doing nothing we associate with boredom often creates the perfect environment to produce our best ideas. We are so stuck up on social media and trying to find inspiration in content that we are most of the time just putting junk in. And when you consume content that is not of high value and education, the junk that you're putting in is the junk that you will be putting out. You need to disconnect from what's popular, what's trendy, and consume content in your field that is educational and inspirational. Another thing you can take from disconnecting is the act of creating what you know instead of seeking extrinsic motivations for creativity. I feel like a lot of the time, creating what you know is a tip that most people get wrong. Our experiences sometimes don't translate into the things that we want to create. They don't scale to the big ideas that we have. Now, honestly, sometimes our experiences are not that entertaining. This is an idea that I got from Local Scriptman, and he explains it like this. Say you want to write about how you felt, or you want to create a piece of content that you felt that is resembling you in a younger age, not getting selected for a team. Say I was a sci-fi writer, how I would frame this idea of not being selected for something that I've worked hard for could be being a space cadet. I've trained my whole life to go to this Alien X agency and I have not got in. All of the ways that I've felt this character is probably going through as well. And you experiencing these can help you create something that is more relatable and realistic, which on a day-to-day basis could just be boring. Another example of this, not in the design and artsy field, is that say you always have the experience of forgetting your hand sanitizer at home. You know other people would also have the same problem. So me, if I was an inventor, I would create or look into creating a portable solution for the problem that I have. At the end of the day, that is what this is all about, creating things that relate to people and help people in some way. A personal example of how I have done this with my own clothing brand, which you can go check out at this app below, is that I felt like the Indian diaspora was not as fully represented in the Melbourne streetwear scene. I took it upon myself as an initiative to create something that represents my type of people through the clothing and streetwear that we wear. Finally, we're going to be talking about delegating the process of creativity. Being creative takes up a lot of brain points, takes up a lot of thinking, and it takes up a lot of time. You can delegate these brain points so that you can save them for more ideas by using other people. Pitching your ideas that aren't fully formed to fresh eyes can help you fully develop these ideas. Say you have a draft for a video that you're thinking of creating, talking to friends and family and pitching this idea to them. They could have some insights that you haven't thought about. They're doing the thinking for you. You're just pitching your ideas to them and they help you fully develop them. Something else that you need to understand when creating things is the 80-20 rule, the Pareto's principle. Most of the time, only 20% of the things give you 80% of the benefits. So you really need to crack down on what things are helping you the most and what things are the most productive to the ideas that you're creating. For someone like me, it would be actually designing the things that I want to put out into the world, actually creating the educational videos. Finally, I want to talk about good artists borrow and great artists steal. This is a famous quote by Picasso. Art is just based on imitation. You're delegating the brain points and the creative process because other people have already done the work for you. I took this format for this video based off one of my favorite YouTubers because I wanted to create educational content. I wanted to spend that time that I would take in editing these types of videos into short films and art. All the ideas don't have to come from you. You can be the voice of other people's ideas. So wrapping up, this is a summary of all the things that we've learned today. To come up with meaningful and creative ideas, you need to address the limiting belief that you are not creative, train your brain to have more creative thoughts, understand the exponential effect of doing the actual process of creating, understanding how disconnecting can unlock creative ideas, and delegating the process of creativity. At the start of this video, I promised you I will guide you on how to come up and develop meaningful and creative ideas. And through these steps, you can do so. Thank you.